And we will get started. Okay, so before we really start anything, I want to know you guys to know who the team is here. I'm Sarah. I am the assistant director for the Abroad at AU program, and you'll be hearing my voice quite a bit. I'm going to talk through most of this with you. We also have another assistant director who works on our program. His name is Ethan Merritt. He advises students who come from Japan, and we are not having any new students come in the spring semester, so he's not with us right now, but you will certainly see him once you get to AU, and he is a good person to ask questions to as well. And then finally, we have Ariana.
Hi guys, I'm Ariana. I am the program assistant for Abroad at AU, and I will talk to you guys a little bit later about orientation, some of the fun events we're going to do in the spring, and the Abroad at AU Buddy program. So if you have any questions about that, we'll get to that later.
And so if you have any questions about anything just in general, after you leave this session and you say, oh, wait, I didn't get that question answered, you should use the abroadaau@american.edu email address that we have listed here. That is going to be the best way to reach us. We all check this email address. So even if, say, I am not here, and Ariana is, you should be able to access us that way, and you should get a quicker answer. There is an email address in our office which you might have already seen that looks very similar to this one. I really recommend you make sure you're sending it to abroad@au@american.edu. The other one, while it is in our office, will take a few people to get to us. So it's much quicker if you just go directly to the Abroad at AU email account. Now, if you have any questions about anything, whether it be housing or billing or courses or anything like that, please contact us first. If you need to be in communication with another office, we can let you know about that. And any kind of questions about your application, email us first. We are the best people. A lot of people on AU's campus aren't really aware of the Abroad at AU program, and because of that, you might get pushed around to a bunch of different offices before you get an answer, and in fact, it might even just come back to us anyway. So really the fastest way to have any kind of question answered is to email that abroad@au@american.edu email address. So we're going to talk about the agenda. So what we're going to talk about today will be the J-1 visa and travel plans, your housing, your health insurance and immunizations, the registration, orientation, Abroad at AU events, and of course buddy stuff as well. We will, again, we're recording this, we will send out a link to this session after we're done. It will probably be tomorrow or Friday, but you will be able to get that. If you have any questions as we go along, feel free to send us messages in the chat. There is also somewhere that you can ask questions. That's a little bit harder for us to see that option. So instead, if you can just do a private chat to us on the left-hand side, which most of you are doing already, that is really helpful. Most of the questions you probably have are already going to be answered. So if you can wait to ask any of the questions until we kind of reach that section, that would be really helpful. If at the end we haven't touched on it at all, please let us know. We'll certainly have time for questions at the end. So first we're going to start with the J-1 visa and travel section. So your J-1 visa, except for the one U.S. citizen that we have coming with us, all of you will be receiving a J-1 visa. These support documents will be mailed to the international office at your home institution. The one exception to that is our Canadian friends who are coming in through the Killam program. I'll contact you directly about getting those to you at your homes. You should make sure when you get your acceptance packet, your hard acceptance packet, to follow the directions in it to apply for your J1 visa to the United States. As a part of that, you will need to do a visa interview. And before you can even request that visa interview, you'll need to pay the SEVIS fee. And you won't be able to actually pay the SEVIS fee until you have your specific SEVIS number, which will be again on your acceptance packet. The first day you'll be able to enter the United States on your J1 visa is December 17th, 2017. So if you want to, for some reason, come any earlier, you will not be allowed to come in on your J1 visa. I've had some students ask, can I come before on a visitor visa? The answer is yes, but then you should be prepared to leave the United States and come back in after December 17th. Your spring immigration documents will expire around May 13th, and I'll talk a little bit more about the end date in a few minutes. Okay, so what we're going to send you in that official packet of acceptance packet will be this really official looking document. This is extremely important. And this is what you'll need when you go to get your visa at the consulate. You should also be prepared to bring the original DS-2019 with you and your passport when you're traveling to the United States. You will not be allowed to enter the United States with a copy of this document, so be sure that you have the original of it. Sometimes when students go and get their visa at the embassy, they forget it there or it's somewhere lost. Make sure when you're leaving your interview that you do in fact have that document, because you need it to get into the United States. Now, I know a lot of people are wondering about travel plans. Some of you have already been admitted to the program, so we've already started to kind of process your immigration documents. Some of you, we expect to admit you shortly, unless we're waiting on some kind of document that we've already discussed. But you'll know this official information in your acceptance packet if you have not been admitted already. So if you plan to live on campus, the dorms will not open until Sunday, January 7th at 3 p.m. And so, as I said earlier, you can enter the United States before that date. You can enter after the 17th. However, if you're planning to live on campus, you will have to find your own place to stay between that December 17th date and January 7th at 3 p.m. You will not be able to apply to enter into the dorms early. So make sure your travel plans have that in mind. In general, though, we do suggest most students arrive to campus on January 8th or 9th. That's the Monday or Tuesday, and that will help get you settled in before orientation. We understand that arriving early and not really knowing anybody is a bit scary, so we do have some optional shopping trips and dinner meetups and other fun things that you can do when you arrive. Again, these will be all optional and they will be on the 8th and 9th. Mandatory orientation will actually begin on the 10th, and it will begin in the morning of the 10th. So you should, again, arrive earlier than that. Now, some students may choose to live off campus, which we'll discuss why and how that's possible later. But if you are planning to live off campus, you may wish to arrive a week or two early to kind of get settled. There might be more things that you need to think about, like food and maybe an extra little bit of furniture or something like that if you're not living on campus. So we generally recommend you get here a little earlier if you can. The last day of finals will be May 8th. If you live in the dorms, that means you need to leave by May 9th at noon. I know that doesn't give you much turnaround time, but that's kind of how the dorms work. That is also part of the reason we suggest you get some kind of changeable or refundable ticket if necessary. When you go for your visa interview, they will require that you have a round trip ticket. So you'll definitely want to do that. But get one that you can change if necessary, because plans change, and a lot of students like to, maybe they've met a friend and they've decided, oh, wait, we're going to go see San Francisco for a week after the semester is over, or something different. So just make sure that you have the ability to change that if necessary. For students, you will have 30 days after the end of your DS 2019 date to leave the country. So your DS 2019, as I mentioned earlier, will probably expire around May 13th. You can stay in the country then for 30 days after that until June 12th. Please note, though, you can't leave the country after that May 13th date, because this grace period is meant to be inside the country. You can't re-enter on your J visa documents during that 30-day grace period. So don't plan a trip to Canada during the middle of that grace period. If you're planning on staying later, either leave directly from, say, Canada or Mexico, or don't leave the country at all during the grace period. And the one other thing I should note is that meal plans will begin actually after the week of orientation. It's a little different than in the fall semester. In the spring semester, it generally doesn't start until the following weekend. So you should have some cash on hand and be prepared to go to some of the eateries on and around campus during that time period to get your lunches. Any questions about travel before we go on to the next section? Okay, I'm not getting anything yet, so I'm going to keep going on. So now we're going to talk about housing. First, I'll talk about on-campus housing. All of you will be offered on-campus housing. Even if you have not already received your acceptance email, you will be offered on-campus housing. We have not received the application yet from the Housing and Dining Office. I've emailed them a few times. However, they have not gotten it to me yet. I was hoping to be able to tell you it was coming out today during the orientation, but unfortunately I don't have it yet. Once I do have it, I will send you all an email and let you know that you have a certain amount of days to complete the application. It will be an entirely separate application with information from your account, but you will also need to use your MyAU portal login, which I'll talk about a little bit later, first. That means you must create your online student account. For the students who have already been admitted and paid their deposit, you can already do that now. For the students who have not yet been admitted officially and not paid your deposit, you may not be able to do that yet, but you will be able to soon. I recommend doing it as soon as you possibly can. Again, I should be able to get this to you hopefully very soon. And so to talk about the different types of housing on AU's campus, we have 3 main types of rooms if you want to live in university housing. First, we have the traditional rooms. Before I actually go on, I should note that no matter what, if you're planning to live on campus or in university housing, you should plan to live in a room with at least one other person, possibly more. While we do have some very small selection of single rooms, it's very, very, very rare that an abroad at AU student is lucky enough to get it. So you can certainly put that down as a preference when you're completing your housing application if you want that. However, you should know that you are agreeing by doing the application to stay where you're placed. So even if you say, I want a single and suite style apartment, if they do not have that available, they will not be able to place you in that. So anyway, back to the original kinds of rooms. So first is a traditional room. That's probably what you see in all your movies about colleges in the U.S. You have two beds and a desk and things like that. You will share that room generally with one, maybe another student, but your bathroom will be shared amongst all the people on the floor. There's typically, depending on the floor, one male and one female bathroom. So that is one thing you should consider. The traditional rooms will be the least expensive of the group. There are kitchen facilities in a lounge on your floor. However, you will be sharing them with a number of people. Additionally, they're not going to actually include any of your pots or pans, so you would need to buy those supplies. If you do live in the housing and any kind of housing on campus, you will be required to have a meal plan, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes. So cooking may not be super necessary for you. In addition to the traditional rooms, we have suite styles. This means you're typically sharing your bedroom with one other person, and then you're sharing a bathroom with a few others. In the case shown here, you're sharing your bathroom with two other people in a different room. In some cases, you might be sharing up to maybe another 4 people total with one bathroom and multiple shower stalls in that one bathroom. Again, these are going to be slightly more expensive than your other ones, but they do have more of a private setting for you if that is a concern. These also will have kitchen facilities on your floor at some place. Finally, we have the apartment style apartments. These are what you would expect as an apartment. They're going to be the most expensive, and they're also going to likely be off campus, nearby, but off campus. And you will have more control over your cooking situation and all of that. But again, you'll still be sharing the bedroom itself with someone else. Someone has asked if a friend comes to Washington, D.C. and that wants to visit, can she stay in the room with her? And the answer is probably for a few days. However, you need to make sure your roommate clears it, and it is potentially possible, but you need to get agreement from your roommate, as well as it can't be for more than a couple of days. I can't remember the exact number, but I feel like it's either 2 or 3. After that, they don't allow it. So what's housing like on campus? So the stuff that's typically provided on campus are things like the built-in closets or wardrobes. We have storage cabinets and dressers. There's a bed, desks with chairs and bookcases, or somewhere to put your books. But what that means is you will typically need things for your bed to buy, and towels and hangers. The one thing that some students struggle with is whether or not they should bring some kind of sheets or anything like that, or if they should purchase them when they're here. So I will say that most students will not get a chance to go shopping before the first night that you sleep in your room. So a lot of students do like to bring at least one sheet with them to have for that first night. You'll typically have some opportunity to do that, to actually buy some stuff later. But you may want to consider at least bringing one sheet. So, who lives on campus? Most of the students in the traditional rooms and even in the suites tend to be mostly under 21 years of age. Um, AU is a smoke-free and tobacco-free campus. So if you do either smoke or consume alcohol, you will not be allowed to do that on campus. Now, for smoking, you can walk to the edge of campus, and for drinking, it's just not allowed anywhere on campus. There are a bunch of staff that work in the dorms, which a lot of parents like for safety and reasons. So on each floor, there will be someone that's called an RA or residential assistant. These are typically undergraduate students in their last 1 or 2 years of university who are there for the semester to ask questions to, or if you have any problems with anything. And then if, in addition to that, they then report to a regular staff member at for the entire building. So say you're having issues with a roommate or something like that, that would be something that they could definitely help you with. Additionally, all the dorms, you have to use your AUID to get into not only the hall itself, but then also the elevator, I believe, and then separately your dorm room. So there's a lot of security associated with these dorms. As I mentioned earlier, you are required to have meal plans if you're in the dorms. Not necessarily if you're in one of the apartments, you may not be required to, but if you are in any of the others, you will be required to have a meal plan. The smallest meal plan you'll be allowed to have is the 100 block meal plan. So you should factor that in on whether or not you want to live on campus. The one other thing that's nice about some of these floors is that the RAs often have events for you to participate in, or fun little things that your floor can do. I do have a question from a student about how warm are the rooms in January. So this question is coming from somebody in Europe, and I will say each room is individually climate controlled. So you can kind of make it as warm or as cold as you want. However, you have to agree with your roommate on how cold or warm you want it to be. I will say typically students on the Abroad at AU program, since you have orientation ahead of time, you'll arrive generally a few days before your roommate will as well. But again, it's all up to you and your roommate to decide how warm or how cool you typically want the rooms. So, off-campus housing. After all of that, why would someone want to live off campus? It sounds like on campus is a pretty good deal since you get to roll out of bed and just kind of get to class the next minute. As I mentioned, students who are over 21 might feel a bit left out on campus. There's a big difference between an 18-year-old American student and a 21-year-old American student, partially because 21-year-olds are able to drink in the United States, but also just maturity levels are a bit different. So you are you should be prepared if you live on campus that you might deal with some younger students who act that way. Also, if you have a really strong preference of a roommate, you're going to be more likely to accommodate that if you live off campus. On campus is going to be a bit more difficult. And again, alcohol and smoking, as I mentioned earlier. Additionally, it can be actually less expensive to live off campus, or as I mentioned earlier, if you are positive you need a single room, that would be another reason because singles are very hard to come by on AU's campus. As far as costs, we took a poll last year, and our students on average pay about $900 a month for their rent off campus. And the lowest rent we heard was about $720, and the highest was around $1,150. In some cases, students share rooms off campus, and in some cases, they do not. So that is something you would need to look for. As far as options and where you kind of should be looking, once you're admitted, if you're not already admitted, you will have access to our off-campus housing under reading, which is under our required readings area on our in your application. Again, this will be after you're admitted. In there, you'll see a bunch of different Facebook groups that exist at AU, as well as the link to the housing and dining off-campus housing websites. There is somebody who works part-time in the housing and dining office and devotes their time entirely to helping students with off-campus housing issues. I highly recommend, if you're struggling at all to figure out where to live or what you need to do, to reach out to that person. They've been very helpful in the past. Students always ask us where they should consider living. And for the most part, most students live within, I would say, a 15-minute walk of the university. But not everybody. You can live anywhere off campus that you want to. It certainly gets cheaper as you go in other parts of the city. If you have any concerns about exactly where you're looking, whether or not it's safe or how long the commute would be, please let us know. We are happy to help you with all of that. But in the meantime, I can give you some general ideas. One, a lot of students end up in the Berks or the Berkshire Apartments, which is probably one of the closest places from here, or the Avalon Apartments. Also, neighborhoods near AU, so Tenley or Tenleytown, Glover Park, Cleveland Park, Friendship Heights, AU Park, all of those are places that students in the past have lived and found it very easy to find things. As I mentioned, there's a bunch of Facebook groups devoted to housing at AU. Additionally, as you get admitted, please friend me on Facebook. There is a link in your application. We will add you to the Abroad at AU 1718 private Facebook page. There are students on that who are here only for the fall 17 semester and might have rooms that they want to get rid of for the spring semester. Also, of course, if you know of anybody who has studied at AU in the past from your university, I highly recommend you reach out to them because they have a great idea of what might work for you. Okay, so that was a lot about housing. Do you have any questions either about on-campus or off-campus housing? Okay, so we have quite a few questions coming in. So one of the questions is, are there different facilities located in different areas, or is there one centralized location for housing? So you'll find AU's campus is actually pretty centralized. There aren't very many, it's not difficult to get from one area of campus to the other. There are very, very few places you can't reach that take more than, say, a 10-minute walk. So if you choose to live on campus, your classes will likely be within a 10 to 15-minute walk at the most. even if you're off campus, you will likely, if you're nearby campus, it's not that far or difficult to get to.
There's no education students.
Not so. Okay, and how much does one meal course cost for one semester? So we do have up on our website or on our application site once you're admitted the meal plan costs at American University. But to kind of give you an idea of what you can expect, the biggest block, and that's probably not right for many of you, because it basically covers every single meal your entire semester here, is $3,000 for the semester. However, the lowest block plan, which a lot of students are happy with because they cook a little bit on campus, is $1,500 for the semester, and that's a 100 block meal plan. Let me see here. What else do we have? We have a lot of questions here. Forgive us as we go through this. Can I have a meal plan if I live off campus? Yes, absolutely can do that. There is one smaller meal plan at the 50 level. So it's 50 meal blocks for the entire semester. And a lot of students like to choose that because then if they're on campus a lot during the middle of the day, they can certainly do that. But you won't be required to have it if you live off campus. How do prices of on-campus housing compare to off-campus housing? It really depends on what you want. Again, if you're on campus, you're almost always going to be sharing a room. And the convenience of living on campus often costs more of not living on campus. However, that's not 100% true across the board. In some cases, you'll find very pretty apartments that cost a lot of money. But in general, you can find cheaper housing off campus, but you do have to consider the commute cost if there are any. Yeah, and Ariana has something as well.
Yeah, also if you want to live within walking distance of the area, like Sarah said, it is a bit more expensive. However, there is a free shuttle bus that takes you to the Red Line Tenley Town Metro Station. So the red line of the metro is very quick, and if you find a place that you'd like to live on that line, that also works so that you make it easy where you can take the metro. And we will talk a little bit later. All of you will have metro passes, so you will be able to use public transportation in the DMV area, the area of DC, for free as full-time students.
And somebody wanted to know where they can get advice for off-campus housing. So in your application where you've been applying, if you have already received your admissions email from us, you will have a place in there that's under the required readings area that says off-campus housing. It's a required reading. And that has very specific information. A lot of what I've already said is in there. And one of the best places is, again, the Housing and Dining Office. They have an off-campus housing person. Let me see what else we have. Do the rules of drinking and smoking apply for AU apartments off campus? Ariana, you live in one of those apartments. I believe it does apply, does it not?
Yes. So I live in the Berkshire Apartments. It's about a 10-minute walk on Massachusetts Avenue. If you are living through American University, yes, there is a resident advisor that works with the security company at the apartments to monitor for drinking and smoking. However, it is a independent community, which means you are living with families and other non-American University students. So in saying that, the rules still exist, but it's not like American University on campus where there will be security monitoring you very, very closely.
So yeah, as far as smoking, smoking is interesting in that you can smoke in your apartments in DC. Maybe not like if you're living in regular off-campus housing, you can smoke in your individual units in DC, but you're really not allowed to smoke like in entryways and things like that. You generally have to be farther away from the building itself. But in the apartments themselves, you should, the non-AU campus, the off-campus apartments, you would be able to smoke. Same with drink if you're over the age of 21.
Yes, no one's going to come into your apartment.
Exactly. Which meal plan do the exchange students typically buy? It really does depend on the student. In some cases, we have students that get almost the full meal plan because they've never cooked a meal in their life. And if you know you're that type of student, definitely get that bigger meal plan. However, if you've been cooking for yourself for a long time, definitely consider the smaller 100 meal plan. I have somebody asking, is living in Maryland, Virginia a possibility, or would you recommend only living in DC? So it's absolutely a possibility in Maryland or Virginia. We have students who live in both this semester. However, I will say the commute time to Virginia in particular might get really exhausting and you might get sick of it by the end of the semester. So in general, I would recommend not looking at Virginia. If you're looking at Maryland and you're looking somewhere along the red line, so somewhere in, say, Friendship Heights or Bethesda or somewhere up north like that, that might be okay. But if it's on the other side of the red line, you will probably not want to live there for very long because of the long commute. And then we have a question about registration, but we will come up to that later, so I will talk about that in a minute. Can you approve of the apartments that we find off campus just to make sure that we are dealing with the right people? Unfortunately, we are not able to vet each individual person. If you are concerned about safety or anything like that, I would only apply to apartments who have their listings on the off-campus housing website because they have independently been verified by AU. If you're on the Facebook page or any of the other options to find apartments in DC, we will not independently be able to verify them. We can, however, tell you whether or not you're in an area that's either going to be too long of a commute or maybe isn't as safe as other places. Okay. Next is health information. So first we're going to talk about immunizations. So details about this are going to be on your Abroad at AU application once you're admitted, and it's under the thing called mandatory immunization form, and it will link to this document on your right. These immunizations are not a rule that Abroad at AU puts in place or that that American University puts in place. This is a District of Columbia rule, a DC rule, which means that it doesn't matter, say, your immigration status or anything like that, you will need to get them. Regular AU students need to have these immunizations as well. Once you see this form, you'll see all the different shots and everything you should have had. In some cases, you may not have already had one of those. Hepatitis B, for instance, seems to be pretty common that students haven't had elsewhere, but are required to have before coming to AU's campus. In the case of hepatitis B, it is a 3-series shot, which means that you will not be able to get all 3 before coming to AU's campus. So in that case, what you should plan to do is to get your first shot or maybe 2 shots before you leave from your home university or your home country, and then get the last shot or shots once you arrive in DC. Now, this is the one and only time, if you have specific questions, you should be directing them at the office directly. We are not medical professionals in our office, so we don't necessarily know if this shot means this or what you should do. We may be able to help a little bit, but for the most part, you should be emailing the health center directly at shc@american.edu with any of those questions. The instructions for the immunization form are on the first page of the form, so you should make sure that you send them in to where you need to. The way this form works is you'll print it out and you will bring it to your doctor, and your doctor will fill it out and sign it, and then you should send this form again directly to the AU Student Health Center at the email listed before January 1st. Make sure you do this on time. Any kind of missing immunizations are likely to result in your transcripts and grades being withheld. We each semester have at least one student who either can't register for the next semester or can't get their grades at the end of the semester because they didn't do what they were supposed to do. So make sure you get to that on time. Any questions about immunizations? And that's a really hard word for me to say. Okay, I don't see anything coming in. So I'm going to talk about the health insurance next. And again, more information about the AU health insurance is going to be available on your online application under the required reading section. I believe it's called AU Health Insurance. In general, we strongly recommend that students get the health insurance through American University because we've historically had some students waive the AU plan when their coverage wasn't quite adequate, and then they ended up with huge medical bills that they weren't really prepared to pay. So we know that AU's health insurance might seem expensive, but if you actually follow all the guidelines on what you need to make sure you have, it's actually pretty reasonably priced given that you're dealing with the U.S. healthcare system. The U.S. healthcare system, which you're probably heard about on the news, is extremely expensive, and navigating the system kind of on your own is difficult. And with your if you get the AU health insurance, your primary care physician is right on campus. So you don't have to worry about trying to figure out where you should go to the doctor right when you're sick. Again, health insurance, much like the immunization form, you can email them directly at shc@american.edu. You should plan to enroll in the AU health insurance by January 16th or waive the AU health insurance by the 18th. If you do not either enroll or you do not waive the health insurance, you will be automatically enrolled in it. However, that will mean that you don't have access to a lot of those like prescriptions and things like that, all the health insurance gives you ahead of time because you'll be enrolled lately. As far as somebody is asking, going back to the immunizations, that they've had different shots by different doctors and clinics, and how would you go about getting this signature? So typically one doctor should be able to sign everything if they get verification from the other doctors that you have had those shots. If for some reason that's a problem, there's also something called a blood titer. That is where they actually draw your blood and make sure you are actually immune to those diseases. So between either getting a blood titer and having it confirmed, or between going to one doctor who has the records from other doctors, you should be able to get one person to sign it. If you're really struggling with that, definitely reach out to the Student Health Center and they will be able to guide you a bit better than I am.
Real quick on the health insurance. For those of you who are planning to enroll in the student health insurance, you will not receive a physical card. You will have to set up a login and password online, and you can access your policy card there. So just be aware that if you need that or want that, you should have that for your records, and also print a couple of copies of that as well.
Okay, so we always recommend that you use the AU health insurance, but I understand for some students, especially students that get their health insurance from their home country, it might be cheaper and more logistically plausible to waive the health insurance and get your own health insurance. In that case, there are 2 steps to waiving the health insurance. So step 1 deals with the J1 visa requirements. All J1 visa holders are required to have specific requirements under their health insurance, and all of that information will be both in your online application once you're admitted, as well as in the acceptance packet that you get from American University when we send it to you with your immigration documents. Make sure your outside insurance meets all of those requirements. If it doesn't, you will not be allowed to waive the health insurance. Then, if you verified that it met all the J1 visa requirements, you also separately have to make sure that it meets all of AU's requirements. They're very similar, but they're not exactly the same, so do make sure that they meet all of AU's requirements too. Those, again, can be linked from our website as well. If you then have both requirements taken care of, you will have to do 2 steps. One is a hard document that you can email and scan and email to our International Student and Scholar Services Office, or bring it with you when you come to the U.S. The other one is you actually have to waive out of AU's health insurance, and that will be done through your MyAU portal. My understanding is that waiver is not live yet for the spring, but it should likely be in the next few weeks. So that's health and insurance questions. Anything else that you guys have as far as that goes? It'll give me an opportunity to take a drink of water. Okay, so we're not getting anything else, so we will move on to the courses and registration section. I will first say that I'm not going to go into very detailed registration steps with you now because it's not registration time. So you may not, it may not be worth it to hear, click here, click here, click here. We will send out information with those very specific steps, and it's also going to be available to you in your portal, application portal. So just keep that in mind. We're going to go over this more generally. So the first steps as far as making sure you get registered will first be to pay your $500 deposit. If you're not admitted yet, you will be, hopefully you will be soon, one of the first steps in that will be to pay a $500 deposit. In that case, you will not be able to do your registration unless you've paid that $500 deposit. We also recommend that you reread the course selection document in your application portal, as well as reading the waitlist and register for courses content in your online application. After that, you should make sure to review your course approvals and request any additional courses if necessary, which I'll talk about in a minute or two. And then finally, you can register. So the first thing that you really need to be aware of when you register is you'll be required to register for 12 credits, even if you don't get into your top class choices. So what that means is it's possible one class might be closed when you go to register. If that's the case, you'll probably go on a wait list, which I'll talk about in a minute. But that means you'll probably have to put something else that you're okay taking in its place, just to make sure that you're at 12 credits. The 12 credits is a restriction or a requirement of both the Abroad at AU program as well as your immigration requirements of being a full-time student. So in general, the way that courses work at AU is that the 100 and 200 level courses are introductory. The 300 to 400 levels are more advanced coursework. And finally, the 500 levels are generally taken in the last year, or in some cases, your first year of graduate school. In some departments, 500 level classes are closed to Abroad at AU students. In some, they're open to Abroad at AU students. When thinking about courses, these are, you should also think about your knowledge level. So let's say you're an anthropology major in your third year of study. It makes sense that you might be in those 300 or 400 level classes. However, if you're an anthropology student and you want to take a business class and it's the first business class you've ever taken, even though you might be in your third year, you should take the 100 or 200 level class just because you don't have any background in that subject. You will not be allowed to register for any kind of restricted courses or internships. And all of our course restrictions are listed on our website under the academics link. If you scroll to the bottom, there are course restrictions. The biggest one to note is the School of Communication. We have very strict rules about what courses you can take in the School of Communication, mainly because there's just not enough seats even for the students who are in the school. So there are some courses, but they're listed on our website, and you must have the equivalent of a 100 level TOEFL in your English if you are considering taking them. The School of International Service, excuse me, and the Kogod School of Business also have some restrictions. They're not nearly as big, but there are some restrictions there as well. Please see our website for that. Any kind of program restrictions or school restrictions that say only open to students in, those you will not be allowed to take. Additionally, your J1 visa says that you are not allowed to take online courses, so you should not take online courses when you are signing up. In some cases, there are courses that are offered in some sections online and subsections offline and in person. In those cases, you need to sign up for the section that is not online but is instead in person. Credit-bearing internships are not allowed in the Abroad at AU program. If you are interested in doing an internship, you can certainly talk to me about that option, but you will not be able to receive credit at American University for doing so. If you're interested in taking any kind of language course that is above the elementary 1 level, you will need to make sure to take the language placement test. Most of the language placement tests are available online. There are a few, I'm thinking for instance Chinese is one, that you do have to be present on campus, but most of them are available online and you can do that. Send a screenshot to the Abroad at AU program. And then next, so the schedule of classes is here. There are other places to find what classes are available at American University. I personally think it's easiest to understand the one that is shown here because it only lists the courses that are in the schedule for spring 2018. It won't show any courses that are not available for that semester. In some of the other places that you can look, it is in fact, they show all kinds of courses at AU, not just ones available in spring 2018. And then separately, there will be a course schedule that comes up, and each individual thing underneath that will show the individual sections for those classes. So we have 2 questions that come in about taking courses in a number of areas. So one person wants to know, can I take some courses in COGOD and some in SOC? That may be possible. You are not restricted to one school at American University, so you are certainly welcome to take courses across different areas as long as they don't fall under the restricted courses area and you have the qualifications to take them. Another person is asking if they can have courses for more than 12 credits. In some cases, most students are able to take more than 12 credits, but there are a few students who are required to take exactly 12 credits. So when I email you about course registration, I will let you know specifically whether you can take more than 12 credits. Somebody is asking about the $500 deposit and does it go back to you or is it a price for books? The $500 deposit that you pay will go onto your student account and it will go to offset any kind of fees that are on that student account. So automatically every student who comes on the Abroad at AU program will be charged $315 in fees. That includes the technology fee, it includes your transportation passes, and a few other things. If you then do choose not to live on campus or anything like that, you'll likely get a refund of the extra money. However, if you live on campus, it will then go toward your on-campus housing costs. And then it says, can you tell me more about the credit-bearing internships? So as I mentioned, you will not be allowed to get credits for an internship through the American University Abroad at AU program. If you are interested in possibly doing an internship, either email me directly or reach out to me once you arrive. You will not be able to start immediately anyway, so we can discuss that more later. For those students who have been admitted, they've probably received something that looks like the thing on the left, that looks like this, which is a course approval form. Those are courses that you've already been approved to take with us. Or it might say that you're not allowed to take certain classes. Be sure to review this very carefully and review whether or not you have enough courses what you would like to take. As you may notice on this form, we can only clear you for courses which you have the prerequisite for at your home university. So if you're currently taking a course that you want to use as a prerequisite, but it wasn't on your transcript from the one I saw, you will need to send us some kind of confirmation of your course enrollment in English. And you should also plan to bring an updated transcript with you in January. If we might have mentioned something like this in this letter that was sent to you at your admission time or when you will be admitted. Now, some students know that they want to request additional courses to be cleared, and that is 100% fine with us if you want additional courses. There are 2 ways to do that. If you have a whole bunch of courses that you want cleared, please put them into the course request form, again, as it was linked in your application. Or if you just have a few requests, feel free to email abroadatau@american.edu with your additional course clearance requests. After you are done making sure you have all the courses that you kind of want, you will get an email from Abroad at AU saying that you've been specifically cleared for these courses. So you've already know which courses you are allowed to take, but in the system, you are still being blocked by Advisor X because I haven't cleared you yet in the system to register, and I haven't cleared any prerequisites. I will send you an email, likely sometime next week, giving you specifics about registration as well as the course clearance information. All students should expect, if you've already been admitted, which I'm guessing one or two of you will not be admitted by November 6th, but if you've been admitted and have already paid your $500 deposit, you will be allowed to register on November 6th. That is true across the board for Abroad at AU students. You are actually registering more quickly than ahead of some of the freshmen on campus. So you are getting some preferential treatment in that sense. But what it does mean is you're registering after some of the juniors and seniors. So it's not guaranteed that courses that you want will be open. And in that case, you may need to put yourself on the wait list for the class. And let me see. So what you'll do when you actually register is you'll go through your MyAU portal, which again, I'm not going to go through the specifics, but you'll do this in the system and then you'll be registered. Again, we'll send more specific details in that email for registration. If you don't get into the actual course that you want, you have the opportunity to put yourself on the wait list. So what the wait list is, it's a process of signing up for a course that is closed. It is the only way that you'll be allowed to get into a class that is full. If a spot opens up in the class because somebody has dropped it, the spot will then be offered to the first person on the list. If another spot opens up, it's then given to the next person on the list, and so forth. You're only allowed to be on 3 wait lists at any time. The way that this works is if you are offered a spot off the wait list, you will be required to register for that course 24 hours before 24 hours after the email is sent. So they'll give you a specific deadline to do so. What this means is you need to be checking your American University email account after you register if you're on the wait list for any course. Be certain that if you're not checking your regular AU email and you want into a waitlisted course, you should at the very least have your email forwarded to an email that you do check on a daily basis. Again, if you're on a wait list, that doesn't mean you're registered for the course and you're not at the full 12 credits. So you may need to put in another placeholder course that you could take if you don't get off the wait list. You will be allowed to stay on the wait list through the first week of classes. Now, I know a lot of students, when they first register, if they don't get the exact list of courses that they want, they're very worried. In my experience, students, the wait lists do very much move at American University, and students typically are quite pleased with the schedule that they choose. So you'll have the entire time from when you register until the end of the first week of classes to really make changes on your schedule. So you have plenty of time to get into some of those courses. If you are on the wait list, though, you'll need to make sure you're checking the wait list, not just through your email, but just to kind of know where you are. And again, more information about how to do that will be in the information we send about course registration. We will be auditing course registrations. So if you register for less than 12 credits, we will add you to a course of our choosing. You will be dropped from any courses that you're not eligible to take. So make sure if there's a course that you want, please get cleared for that course ahead of time. Okay, that was a lot of me talking about courses. Do you guys have any questions either about courses or course restrictions or how registration in general or anything like that? I'm gonna take a break in the meantime. Okay, I don't see anything. As I mentioned, the date for registration is going to be November 6th, and you should register as soon as you can from that date. But again, we'll give more instructions about that once we send out the email to you. Okay, so I'm sick of talking. Ariana, can you talk a little bit about orientation?
Okay, so as we mentioned earlier during the travel plan portion of this presentation, mandatory orientation will be on the 10th and 11th. So during that time, we're going to do the document collection, immigration check-in. So you'll be sure to bring all your immigration documents with you to that first session. We will also have campus tours to get you familiar with the campus. We'll talk about your student IDs. Along with that, the U-Pass that I mentioned earlier, which is the Metro Pass or the Public Transportation Pass. We'll get you familiar with student services and other campus resources here, like the gym, or if you're interested in joining a sports team or a performing arts, all these kind of fun stuff. We're going to talk about all of that. We will also go through employment and visa regulations, kind of what we touched on a little bit today, but a little bit more in depth. And the American classroom and academic integrity, we're going to talk about expectations in the classroom, discuss issues like plagiarism, and that sort of stuff. So during the week, we'll also have some optional activities for you to get involved in. Like I mentioned, the campus tours, shopping trips. We will take you to a store called Bed Bath & Beyond. So if you need some sheets, some things for your apartments or your dorm rooms, this is a great opportunity. We'll go in a bus together. And we'll take you to Bed Bath & Beyond, and also nearby is a big store called Target. So if you are looking to buy a lot of stuff, this is the time that you'll want to do it because you will have transportation. We'll also do meet and greet socials where you'll get to know your other Abroad at AU participants, and group dinner outings. I do want to mention during the orientation week, we'll have our orientation leaders. They're phenomenal, amazing students who studied abroad and know exactly everything you're going through. So you'll get to know some local American University students during that week as well. For Snapshot DC, this is a really exciting activity that we have planned for you. It is a photo scavenger hunt. So what you will do is you will register for this. There is a small fee for participating. I believe it's $25, and that will cover dinner, and we have a sort of award ceremony afterwards.
With great prizes.
With great prizes. So it's a really great opportunity to get to know the city, get to use the public transportation, take some fun photos, make new friends. So it's a really exciting activity. So be sure to sign up for that so that we get you organized in there. For those of you who are interested in getting paired with a local American University student, we offer a buddy program where we'll match you with a student that has traveled abroad. There is an application for that. We have not opened the application portal yet. However, we will do that very soon, and you will receive an email notifying you that the application has opened. And for the application, there will be some questions. We want to just get to know you, what your interests are, what you expect, and likewise, the American student will also fill in an application. So we'll do our best to match you with somebody that has either been to your home country or at least has some sort of interest and involvement with that region. We will do a sort of kickoff event at the beginning of the year. You'll attend a sports game together. And then throughout the program, it's a very informal program. That means that it's really up to you to determine how involved you want to be with your buddy. We have students that are best friends and they go traveling all over together, all over the country. We have some students that really just get together maybe once or twice throughout the semester. You could use it as an opportunity to improve your English skills. Really, it's up to you to make or break the program. So we will also, I'm very lucky to get to do a lot of fun events with you guys throughout the semester. So we have a Broada AU event programming. So next semester, you can look forward to going to historical locations like the Capitol Hill, Congress, where the legislative branch is based out of. We'll also attend a sports game, likely a basketball game, to watch the Washington Wizards. We also have opportunities for you to volunteer, so we would love to encourage you all to give back to your host community here. And just a lot of fun events throughout the semester. So at orientation, I will talk about how you're going to sign up for these programs. I'm very open. If you have anything that you're absolutely dying to see, just let me know in advance and we'll see if we can get that on the event programming for you. So make sure to get in contact with us, as Sarah said earlier. abradaau@american.edu is the best email address to contact us. Please don't use Facebook as our primary contact method. We only really check it on the occasion, so if it's something that's really important, please use the email. Like us on Facebook, American University Abrada AU. Follow us on Instagram and Snapchat. I've seen a few of you already join us on Instagram, so you'll see some of the fun stuff we do throughout the semester. Be sure to add Sarah on Facebook, Sarah B. Harlow. And then a lot of you have also already been added to the Abrada AU group, but for the rest of you, be sure to do so.
Okay, and now we are going to go to any questions. We bypassed a few of the questions as we were going through because they weren't directly related to what we were talking about at the time. So we're going to go back to a few of those questions first. One was that one student just wanted us to repeat the earliest arrival and latest departure dates to and from the U.S. So the earliest date you would be eligible to enter the United States will be on December 17th. Of course, that is provided you already have your visa at that point. But that will be the absolute earliest you'll be able to enter on your J1 visa documents. But again, for orientation, as long as you're here by the 8th or 9th, that is fine. The end of the semester, you will have until June 12th to leave the country. So you have plenty of time after the semester, 30 days after your documents to do so. The other question that we kind of went past was about courses. If you get a decline on one of the courses for whatever reason, will we be notified by email from us in a good time. So as far as whether or not you're approved for courses, most of you would have received a course approval form on the actual acceptance email. If you haven't been accepted yet, you will get that as part of it. If for some reason there was one declined there, and you think you are eligible to take the class, you can certainly reach out to us and try to get more information about why you were declined from that particular class. As far as actually being on a wait list or not getting into the class, you are ultimately going to be the one responsible for registering yourself. So you will know if you are actually in that course when you register at that point. And again, we'll go into more details with a video we send you and with all of our documents that we have about the actual course registration process. How many total students are there at AU, and how many student exchange students from abroad? So there are a lot of students at AU, but probably not as large as some of your universities. We have, I believe it's like 8,000 undergraduate students and approximately the same number of graduate students on campus. So I would say around 15-ish thousand or so on campus. There are, I believe, Ariana, do you know how many international students there are on campus?
It's about 1,100.
Yeah, that sounds right to me.
Yeah.
So about 1,100 students or so who are international students. Of those exchange students, there are about 40 incoming new exchange students for the spring semester, and there's about that many who will be continuing over from the fall into the spring semester. Some of them may be orientation leaders during your orientation week, so you might actually get to know them ahead of time. Another question came in about, can you work on your visa or can you engage in non-paid volunteer work? It gets a bit complicated about that. So you will be allowed to work on campus up to 20 hours per week. You'll need approval before you do that, but you are allowed to work up to 20 hours a week on campus. As far as non-paid volunteer work, possibly. Volunteers are categorized very specifically for J1 visa regulations. So in some cases, you could just go ahead and volunteer at those locations. In some cases, you would need approval as if you were doing an internship. So if you're considering doing some kind of volunteer work, please let us know and we can kind of talk you through that process. Another question we had is, how many papers and assignment do students at AU usually need to do? So it really depends on the course about how many papers or assignments students typically do. I will say it's likely a lot more than you're probably used to at your home universities. Most students at on exchange at AU feel that there is a lot more work throughout the semester than they're used to at their home universities. Whereas a lot of you, I know, probably only have like a midterm or a final and maybe one paper or something like that. You're going to be a lot busier than that at AU. You'll probably have assignments throughout the semester. You'll probably have a bunch of papers, but a lot of those are going to be worth smaller portions of your grade than you're probably used to. And your final exam is probably going to be worth less of your total grade than you're used to as well. But you should expect to kind of work throughout the semester and not necessarily just cram for a midterm or a final. Again, though, that does depend on each individual course and each individual professor, but in general, that is what you will find. Any additional questions that we have coming in? Okay, we have a question about extracurricular activities such as events and groups for politically minded students and sports for students. We have a ton of extracurricular activities on campus, and we will certainly talk about them during our orientation week. If you're politically minded, you came to the right place. American University is typically in the top 5 of most politically active student body in the United States. So we have a ton of clubs as far as both politically oriented, internationally politically oriented, all kinds of different things like that. We also have a variety of sports teams. You won't be able to play at the AU varsity level, but we have things that are club sports where you can play against other people at other universities, or intramural sports where you're able to play at against other people at American University on different teams. And we have a large variety of sports. But if for some reason you want to do something that isn't available at AU, it's likely that you're actually going to be able to find it somewhere in the DC area, even if you can't find it at AU. We have another question about syllabi and if you can get them. The answer is typically yes, we can get your syllabi for you. Some of them I have access to immediately and I can send you immediately. Sometimes I do have to go to the individual department to request it. So some will be quite quick getting back to you and some will take a bit more time. But if you do have any requests for like a course outline or a syllabus, please let me know at the Abroad at AU email address and we can get those to you. Yes, again, just email abroad@au@american.edu. That's the best place to email that question.
On the subject of classrooms, we will discuss this more in depth at orientation, but you should expect that your classroom size will be pretty small. These are really sort of seminar based discussions. They're very discussion based classrooms, typically 25, 30 students maximum. And you're really expected to participate a lot. So many of you, that's one of the biggest shocks for the students that come and they're used to having a large lecture style classroom where their professor talks to them or at them. In classrooms here at American University especially, they really expect you to participate and discuss and have a lot of input into your learning.
Yeah, and I would say that's true pretty much across the board. So many different types of majors, even if you're not used to it at your home institution, it's very possible you'll have to do that at AU. Some exceptions do apply. I mean, maybe in a math course you won't have to as much, but you're probably still going to be more interactive with your professor than you are probably at your home institution. But it again, we'll go over that during orientation, more the specifics like that. Any additional questions? So we have a question about internships in embassies or city council or Capitol Hill, etc. We've certainly had people do internships in those locations before. We do not set up any internships for you. So you should be looking into it on your own. You will have access to our Career Center to help you look for internships, but it is ultimately your own responsibility to do so. There's generally 2 restrictions as far as what you can do on internships, and one of them is translating. They don't want you to sit in a room by yourself the entire time and translate into your home language, and that's your only job. The other thing is your own embassy. If you're not really doing anything dealing with the American public at all, it's really unlikely that you'll get approved to work in your own embassy under the J-1 visa. The other big issue is the internship component would need to be directly related to what you're studying at AU. And again, if you do have specific questions about those internships and things like that, I'm more than happy to talk you through that. Either send an email to Abroad at AU or wait until you get on campus and reach out to us then. Any additional questions? Okay, I don't think we're getting anything else in. Again, as we said, we will be sending a version of this out to you, probably with specific time markers, so you don't have to watch the entire hour and a half all over again. So we will send that out. You will also be getting an email soon about registration. You'll get a separate email about the AU Buddy program once that is opened. Anything else you'd like to add, Ariana?
Nope, we look forward to seeing you guys here on campus.
Absolutely. We're super excited to work with you guys. Thanks so much and talk to you all soon.
Muted.
You just stay on air while they say bye.